The countdown clock behind me read 6 minutes and 40 seconds, and every alien eye in that chamber was fixed on me like I was already guilty of something I had not done yet. My name is Elena Marsh, and I was the only human voice allowed to speak on the floor of the Interstellar Coalition Assembly that day. 11 species sat above me in a ring of colored light, and not one of them looked like they wanted to hear what I had to say. 3 weeks earlier, a small border skirmish near the Kisari frontier had ended in 11 days. Humanity's outer fleet had answered an attack on our colonies, and finished it faster and cleaner than anyone in that chamber thought possible. I had expected relief from the coalition. I had expected gratitude. Instead, I got fear. 11 days, said Delegate Voss Theron of the Vash Combine, his translator flattening every word into something cold. A defensive war ended in 11 days, Commodore. That is not proportional strength. That is a warning to the rest of us. I stood there in my dress uniform, alone at the center of that horseshoe of alien light, and I understood that they had not brought me here to thank humanity. They had brought me here to sentence us. The Assembly's decision, Theron continued, is total disarmament of Earth's defense fleet within 72 hours. Every capital ship decommissioned, every shipyard sealed under coalition inspection. Humanity may keep unarmed vessels only. My chest went tight. 72 hours to give up everything that kept 12 billion people safe. And if we refuse, I said, though I already knew the answer, then 11 Allied fleets currently holding position at the edge of our solar system will begin a full blockade. No trade, no travel, indefinitely. I looked up at those alien faces, ancient civilizations that had been building starships while humans were still learning to farm, and I realized the truth sitting under all of it. They were not afraid of what we had done. They were afraid of what we could do next, and they wanted to make sure we never got the chance. I sent the compliance order back to Earth myself. I owed it to every officer wearing our uniform to hear it from my own voice, instead of a cold transmission buried in paperwork. Admiral Daniel Cross took the news on the delayed feed, with a stillness that unsettled me more than shouting would have. "Understood, Commodore," he said. "We will begin compliance." Just like that. Just like that, he repeated, and something in his tone was too calm, too steady, like a man who already knew a door I could not see. Over the following 3 days, I watched our fleet die from the observation deck of the assembly station. Shared sensor feeds showed reactor after reactor powering down across Titan, across the Kuiper defense line, across every shipyard humanity had ever built. Running lights faded to black one by one. I felt every one of those lights go out like something being cut away from inside my own body. "You should be proud," Theron told me as the last carrier group went dark. "This is what a mature species looks like, one that can be trusted with restraint." I did not answer him. I kept my eyes on the countdown instead, watching the seconds fall toward 0, holding my hands still so he would not see them shake. At 6 minutes past the deadline, every alarm across the assembly station screamed at once. The Yeth delegation, a species that spoke through scent and never raised their voice for anything, let out a sound none of us had ever heard from them before. Theron shot to his feet, eyes locked on the main display, and for the first time since I had known him, his voice cracked wide open. "That cannot be possible," he said. The tactical display filled with contacts. Not one ship, not a squadron, but a fleet unfolding out of a hyperlane corridor that appeared on no chart any of us had ever seen. Thousands of signatures. The sensor grid kept throwing errors trying to classify them because nothing in any species threat library matched what it was reading. "Identification confirmed," said an officer at the tactical station, her voice thin with disbelief. "All contacts are human." The chamber went silent in a way I had never heard 11 species go silent together. I stared at that display, and something that had been clenched tight in my chest for 3 straight days finally, quietly, let go. Of course they knew. Of course someone back home had already thought of this. It took 4 hours to open a formal channel with the fleet's commander, a woman named Corinne Vasquez, holding a rank that did not officially exist anywhere in Earth's declared command structure. "Coalition Assembly," she said, her image steady on every screen in the room, standing on a bridge unlike anything humanity had ever shown this galaxy. Clean lines, strange alloys, a design decades ahead of anything we had disclosed. "This is Fleet Admiral Vasquez, commanding 2nd Reserve. I understand there is some concern about our arrival." Theron found his voice first, though it came out smaller than I had ever heard it from him. "That fleet was never declared. It is not accounted for under any treaty. It should not exist." "It doesn't," Vasquez said, almost gently. "Not on paper. 2nd Reserve was built over the last 30 years, in deep space, 40 light-years past any charted trade lane, funded and crewed entirely outside our formal defense budget. No treaty can cover ships that were never declared to anyone. Earth complied fully and in good faith with your order. Every ship you knew about is dark, exactly as promised." "This is a violation of the spirit of the agreement," Theron said, his composure slipping further. "With respect, Delegate," Vasquez answered, and there was steel under her calm now. "You asked humanity to give up the ships you could see. You never once asked whether there were others. That question was yours to ask, and you never asked it." I understood then exactly what I was looking at. Not a trick, not a bluff meant to frighten anyone. A quiet, patient decision, made decades ago, by people who understood something the Coalition never had to learn the hard way, that safety should never depend on a single fleet, a single shipyard, a single point that someone else could order shut down in 72 hours. We had disarmed exactly as told. We had simply never told anyone what armed had truly meant. The talks that followed lasted 6 weeks, not 72 hours. And this time I did not stand alone on that floor. Admiral Cross stood at one shoulder, Admiral Vasquez at the other, and for the first time in 4 years of sitting in that chamber, the delegates did not look at us like a species waiting for sentencing. They looked at us like something they could no longer fully measure. "The Assembly withdraws the disarmament order," Theron said at last, and I watched what it cost him to say those words aloud. "In exchange, humanity agrees to new transparency protocols regarding future fleet construction." "We can talk about transparency," I said, "but Delegate, I want one thing understood first." He waited, his 4 eyes steady on me. "You were never truly afraid of our fleet," I said. "You were afraid of what we might do with one. What you should have asked is what we would do without one. And the answer, it turns out, was build a second fleet that nobody could take away from us." Walking out of that chamber, I thought about every quiet decision that must have led to that moment. Engineers and officers working in the dark for 30 years, on a project most of them probably never expected to see finished, building something not out of anger, but out of a simple, stubborn refusal to leave 12 billion people with only one door out of danger. I do not know if the Coalition ever truly understood what they were dealing with after that day. I am not certain humanity fully understands it either. The instinct that made us build a fleet inside a fleet, a promise hidden inside another promise, decades before we ever needed either one. But I know this much. Nobody has asked us to disarm since, and somewhere far past any chart the Coalition has ever drawn, in dark space no treaty accounts for, I like to think there is already a 3rd reserve quietly taking shape, just in case anyone is ever tempted to ask again. Some victories are loud, decided in a single battle, and remembered for the fire of it. Ours was quiet, decided decades before anyone knew there was even a question to answer. And maybe that is the part of us the galaxy should have studied first. Not our ships, not our fleets, but the patience behind them, the simple habit of preparing for a storm long before the sky ever turns dark. I still sit on that same assembly floor sometimes, watching new delegates argue about humanity's next move, and I let them wonder. Let them guess at what else might be waiting out past the edge of the map. Because the truth is simpler than any of them expect. and far harder to prepare against. We do not plan for the fights we expect to win. We plan for the ones we hope we never have to fight at all, and we build for that hope with everything we have, quietly, patiently, for as long as it takes. That, more than any weapon we have ever built, is the thing the galaxy finally learned to respect.